So I started out looking for some cool UFO content for the video today, and it kind of ended up being a little bit about Louis Elizondo blocking me. It's amazing. You know, I've got a tiny podcast, maybe 20,000 listeners a week or something, and Louis Elizondo is a big time UFO name. And I have made some comments critical of Louis in the past, and maybe had a few jokes at his expense. There was that one post to him with the meme I made saying not to trust old men with new tattoos, but I just thought it was all in good fun. I know Gary Nolan blocked me, and I think it's because I was picking on his buddy Louis. But wow, I feel a little bit hurt about this. I went to Louis' Twitter feed to find out what all the buzz was about. Apparently he's saying something about this UFO wreck back in 1950, and to my surprise, I was blocked. But I'm going to do the best I can without Louis' input on this whole situation, and we'll see if we can get through it. I found this article here over on Reddit, post I guess you would call it. Elizondo claims in new book that one UFO was recovered in 1950 near Del Rio on Texas-Mexican border. This specific crash retrieval was mentioned in MJ-12 documents. Is it time to consider some of these documents as authentic? Goes on, it says, according to Bryce Zebal, who already read the book Imminent, Louis Elizondo claims in this book that one UFO was recovered in 1950 near Del Rio on the Texas-Mexican border. This specific crash retrieval was mentioned in the infamous MJ-12 documents. Then it says, is it time to consider some of these documents as authentic? There is a lot of information in those MJ-12 documents which seems very odd. Some Redditors in the past already show how pieces of information from MJ-12 documents were corroborated decades later, although they were completely unknown to the public during the time when MJ-12 documents emerged. And then it talks a little bit about that. Look, maybe it's a limited hangout. I just don't know. That's the problem when you have no chain of custody on this stuff. The MJ-12 documents remind me a lot of the way the Tic Tac videos were handled. I mean, from one person to the next, and then there's a big write-up in a paper about it or something, and it seems like maybe somebody monetizes it, but when you get right down to it, it's hard to find exactly what the chain of custody on this stuff is. And that seems to be the problem with a lot of these things. But I am interested in this 1950 crash. We'll take a little bit of a closer look at that, in spite of Louis Elizondo having blocked me on Twitter.
All right, so you're standing there with your arms up in your flight suit next to this little private plane, and you're 150 yards away from this crash disk. How many soldiers were there approximately there, and were they deployed in a circle around it, or what?
No, it was about, I'd say 150 there when I got there.
All right, it's quite a number.
Already.
Right? Mm-hmm.
And about 35 vehicles.
Wow, all right. Could you see
and the vehicles on both sides.
All right, could you see the craft itself?
Yeah. I went in there and I was talking to this Spanish lieutenant. Anyway, I talked to him, and we walked down through there, and he said, I never seen anything like it before. And I said, no, I either. But I said, this site's a little different than some I've looked at. This one here had some solid pieces still scattered down through there.
All right, so some of it was intact. Did it have any markings or anything on the exterior, or was it just the skin of it?
Now, this is an excerpt of a video done with Colonel Robert B. Willingham, who talks about this Del Rio, Texas crash, and this looks like the one that Louis Elizondo is supposedly making the big upcoming reveal on in his book. Some people have thought maybe it was Kingman, Arizona. I talked about that, I believe. But this one right here is one that's been known about in the UFO community for a long time, and pretty interesting interview here with Colonel Willingham. He passed away in 2015. We'll take a closer look at him in just a minute. We'll go ahead and listen to this interview for just a bit longer.
Skin of it.
Well, no, I picked up a little piece of it on the way out of there.
Well, I know. I want to get there. I want to get there in just a minute. Hold on with that, please.
All right.
You walk up to this thing. Well, did the Mexicans let you get close to it, or did they hold you off a little bit?
No, they helped me off till the lieutenant got up there.
All right, and when he got there...
I don't think they spoke very good English, the rest of them did.
All right. I hope they weren't putting their guns on you all this time.
Well, they had them pointed that direction.
I get it. I get the picture. All right, so the lieutenant gets there. You walk up to the craft itself. How close did you get to it, Colonel?
I walked right up and kicked a piece of it.
Wow. All right. How big was it in diameter? About?
Well, where it hit, there was a lot of small pieces, like 2 foot by 8 inches, maybe 2 foot by 28 inches. Just different pieces off of it, you know.
Okay.
Then it got on up to where it stopped. It looked to me like that it was a piece of 10-inch pipe that was real shiny. And I don't know if that was part of the fuel consumption part of it or what it was. But he didn't know either, the Mexican didn't.
Could you see inside what was left of the intact craft?
No. Wasn't nothing like that in there.
Was there any evidence of any life, dead or alive, around that object?
They were on up front, according to them. They said don't look like people, but said we can't let you go up there. The general's already said no, nobody look at that.
So
they didn't even let the boys that was guarding it look at it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so the front of the craft that impacted the ground ripped a hole open inside, and apparently people could see in there, and there were dead ETs, or they weren't humans. There were dead bodies in there of some kind.
Right.
And you couldn't get around there to see in there either.
Well, I kind of snuck around a little bit.
You're a sneaky fella, aren't you? All right, now tell it. You snuck around there a little bit, Colonel. What did you see?
Well, it didn't look like human beings to me.
How many of them were there?
I believe there were 3, and the lieutenant said there were 4.
All right.
But I never did see the other one.
Were the bodies mangled, or were they relatively intact, and what were they dressed in?
Well, they weren't dressed at all.
Okay.
And they were in a lot of different pieces. I didn't see but one that had a complete top. But I wouldn't swear what he was even.
All right. What did the head look like? Anything like we've seen in the common research literature, the big eyes, the smooth skin, or the little mouth? Did you see anything?
Yeah, there's some of them that looked like that. They just, I don't know how you'd explain it, but they just, their heads and arms and stuff, their arms are little bitty. They look like broomsticks.
Wow, okay. But
That's
they had...
how big...
Broomsticks.
Go ahead.
All right, no, I got you. They had no uniform on. They were just basically skin, if that's what their outer covering is.
Yeah.
No, any evidence of blood?
I didn't see any.
Okay, but they were...
Man, I just got the glance in there, because he wouldn't let me go look in it. I just happened to be walking by it and looking in there, you know, and he said, "Oh, you can't do that. You got to come over here."
You're a smart man. I'm glad you did. The colonel actually got a look, listeners. I'm sure you're right on this, of the occupants of that craft, all dead on impact, apparently. And we'll come right back. Colonel, stand by if you would, please. Get yourself a drink of water. You're doing wonderfully here, describing an extraordinary event. We'll come right back with Colonel Robert Willingham.
Just a fascinating interview there. In case you're wondering, Robert Burton Willingham, Colonel Robert Burton Willingham, a real person, born in 1926, August 15th, and passed away August 28th, 2015, just about 9 years ago. This obituary. It gives a little bit of his background. It says he was born in Holiday, Texas in 1926, went into World War II at the end, December 8th, 1945, at the end of the war. Was in the U.S. Air Force, as he retired from the Air Force as a full colonel on June 1st, 1966. That's pretty good, actually. The colonel was awarded the Purple Heart for injuries he received in Korea. Bert was at the front visiting friends when the Chinese communists attacked. He and everyone else there was given a rifle and ordered into foxholes. A mortar shell landed in his foxhole and seriously injured his leg. He spent much time convalescing in the hospital in Japan and San Antonio. Goes on and says the colonel was also a witness to a UFO in about 1955 when he was piloting an F-86 Sabre jet escorting a B-47 stratojet bomber over West Texas. They were flying a Cold War simulated bombing run on the Soviet Union. This incident was memorialized in the 2008 book The Other Roswell, UFO Crash on the Texas-Mexico Border, written by Noah Torres and Ruben Urete. Bert was an accomplished musician who liked to play guitar, on and on. But it just kind of gives you an idea. This was something in the mainline media that was known about. Really, really fascinating guy. We'll finish up here with this next article. This comes to us from U.S. Air Force Wiki. Now, they got the date of the death wrong. It says 2011. Of course, we know that it was 2015. Tells us on December 6, December 1950, Colonel Robert B. Willingham, Jack Perkins, and team leader John Bowen, U.S. Air Force, arrived at Del Rio at the Texas-Mexico border to investigate a downed craft and to determine if it was USA's. The men were met by Army Lieutenant Martinez of Mexico, who then escorted them across the border and into Mexico. In the El Indio Guerrero area, Bowen, Willingham, and Perkins were brought to the site to identify the downed craft's engines. The site was heavily guarded by the Mexican Army. The craft was sticking in the side of a hill, having left a 300-yard gouge in the earth where the craft skidded before stopping. The craft was not the USA's, or was it Mexico's. While the hatch was open, Willingham peered inside, only to be horrified by what he saw. However, this moment was only very brief. Lieutenant Martinez denied Willingham access inside and sought to quickly dismiss the investigating U.S. Air Force personnel. As it turns out, the inside of the craft was radioactive. From what Wellington gathered, there were 3 bodies, 2 of which were badly mangled. They appeared to have died in the crash, but oddly, despite the mangled condition of the bodies, Willingham did not recall seeing traces of blood anywhere around them. What was more strange was that the occupants had large heads, slit like mouths, and arms like broomsticks. In fact, none of them even looked human, and none of them were wearing clothes. Before leaving, Willingham found a small curved piece of silvery alloy with a honeycombed pattern of holes on the 2 sides. Upon returning to base, the men gave their reports and Willingham submitted his finding. The item was sent to Marine Metallurgic Laboratory in Maryland. Later, U.S. Air Force acquisitioned craft remnants from the government of Mexico to Sandia Base in New Mexico, USA. The bodies were not only radioactive but exhibited a contaminated condition. They were released from Mexico to be transferred to Brooks Aeromedical Laboratories in San Antonio, Texas. Bowen, William, and Perkins were contacted by U.S. Counterintelligence Corps to not disclose the matter with anyone in the interest of national security. When Williams was 82, he gave his testimony to writers Noah Torres, Ruben Urete, who then went on to publish the book The Other Roswell, UFO Crash on the Texas-Mexico Border in 2008. Willingham indicated in his testimony that he had sustained an injury that December, but did not say it was inflicted by Mexican Army personnel. Fascinating stuff. Well, I don't know if this is what's going to be released in Louis' upcoming book. I won't be able to see it on Twitter as he's blocked me, but what a cool case this is. Stay in touch, stay informed. This is UFO Warning, over and out.